Welcome back, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well. They don't breathe, they don't blink, and yet somehow they watch. Welcome back. Tonight we're talking about things stitched with smiles and stuffed with something far less friendly dolls. Because nothing says harmless childhood comfort quite like a porcelain face that might whisper your name at 3:17 a.m. Let's start with the obvious question. Why dolls? Simple. They look almost human, but not quite. That uncanny valley, it's not just discomfort. Some believe it's instinct. A built-in alarm system screaming, "Hey, that shouldn't have eyes like that." Paranormal theory suggests dolls act like vessels, empty containers waiting for something to move in. Spirits, demons, or, if you're unlucky, something that used to be human and decided it wasn't done yet. Let's begin with the celebrity of cursed toys, Annabelle. Not that porcelain nightmare from the movies, but a simple Raggedy Ann doll, soft, harmless, almost disappointingly normal. Now, I understand what they're trying to do with the movies, keeping it with the creepy doll, and that's why they created the Annabelle that you see in the movies. I do kind of wish personally that they would have kept it a Raggedy Ann doll, just because that would have been so much more relatable for so many people. I mean, how many people had the Raggedy Ann doll? How many people still have one? I personally think that would have been a little bit creepier just for that reason. Until it started moving. Allegedly gifted to a nursing student in the 1970s, Annabelle didn't just shift positions, she wrote notes, "Help me," on parchment paper no one owned. Because of course she did. Enter paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren, who concluded not a child spirit, never a child spirit. Something was pretending, something that wanted permission to stay. Annabelle now sits locked in a glass case, blessed, sealed, watched. And yet, visitors still report accents after mocking her. Rule 1 of haunted objects: if it looks stupid, it's probably dangerous. Now let's talk about Robert. Robert doesn't need permission. Robert takes it. Gifted to a boy named Gene in the early 1900s, Robert quickly became the dominant personality in the house. Furniture moved, objects broke, and when asked who did it, Robert. Not denial, not imagination, just fact. Witnesses claimed Robert changed facial expressions, giggled, moved when no one was looking. Today, Robert resides in a museum. And here's the part that should concern you. Visitors must ask permission before taking his photo. If they don't, they write apology letters later, hundreds of them, because their lives fall apart. Coincidence? Sure. And every horror story starts with that word. Okiku. Now we travel to Japan. Ukiku. A doll with hair that grows. Let me repeat that. Hair that grows. Originally a simple gift, Okiku became something else after the death of a young girl. The family believed her spirit inhabited the doll. Then the hair started changing, growing longer, measured, documented. Scientific analysis once confirmed human hair, still growing, because nothing says peaceful afterlife like needing regular trims. Okiku now resides in a temple, maintained, respected, because some things you don't throw away, you appease them. Italy doesn't advertise its haunted dolls, it buries them in stories. Whispers from old villas, locked rooms in countryside estates. One tale speaks of a doll known as La Bambola del Pianto, the weeping doll, left behind in an abandoned house after a child's death. Neighbors reported hearing crying at night, doors opening, footsteps, and the doll, always found in a different room, closer each time. Italy has a long relationship with the supernatural, Catholic relics, exorcisms, saints, curses. So when did a doll start moving? They don't call it a mystery, they call it priest. Let's not forget Mandy the doll, blamed for missing objects and unexplained sounds in a museum. Staff refused to leave her alone. Peggy, said to cause chest pains, nausea, and vivid nightmares just by looking at her photo. Yes, a photo. Because apparently even pixels aren't safe anymore. So, what's really going on? Let's break it down. Spirit attachment. Objects tied to emotional trauma before become anchors. The stronger the emotion, the stronger the attachment. Inhuman entities, not ghosts, not people, something older, something that mimics innocence, because it's easier to be invited in. Thought forms, tulpas. Belief creates reality, enough fear, attention, and storytelling, and we accidentally build the haunting. Congratulations, humanity may be collectively manifesting nightmare fuel. Museums and collectors want these objects. Why? Because a dormant doll doesn't sell tickets. A cursed one? That's eternal revenue. Many haunted dolls are reported to move only when ignored. Some investigators refuse to keep dolls in their homes after incidents. In multiple cases, dolls are thrown away and returned. Not found, returned. Think about that. Something choosing to come back. Here's the thing, maybe it's all coincidence. Maybe it's psychology. Maybe it's just stories we tell ourselves to make the dark more interesting. Or maybe somewhere, right now, there's a doll sitting in a room, quiet, still, waiting. Not for movement, not for sound, but for you to notice it noticed you first. Let's go back to Annabelle. Let's be honest. The real Annabelle isn't somatic. No cracked porcelain, no hollow black eyes. She looks like something your grandmother would win at a fair, and somehow that makes it worse. 1970s, a nursing student named Donna received a Raggedy Ann doll as a gift. Normal origin story. No thunderstorms, no cursed antique shop. Just bad luck wrapped in red yarn hair. At first, Annabelle was just misplaced. Donna would leave her in the bed, come back, and find her on the couch. Harmless. Until Harmless started keeping a schedule. The movements escalated, legs crossed, arms repositioned, then relocation, different rooms, closed doors, because apparently Annabelle didn't believe in personal boundaries or physics. Then came the messages. Help me. Help us. Written on parchment paper. Here's a detail that bothers investigators. Donna didn't own parchment paper, so either someone was breaking in to leave craft supplies and emotional pleas, or something without a body found a way to write anyways. Neither option is comforting. Enter Lou, friend of Donna, not a fan of Annabelle. He claimed the doll felt wrong. You know that instinct, that quiet voice that says, leave now? Lou ignored it because skepticism is brave, right up until it bleeds. One night, Lou wakes up paralyzed, Annabelle at his feet, climbing slowly up his chest, stopping at his throat, strangling. He blacks out, wakes up alive, which is rude, honestly. If we're going to be attacked by a doll, at least give a clean ending. Later, Lou reports sharp pains. His shirt is torn. His chest? 7 distinct claw marks. 3 down, 4 across. Gone within days. Because whatever did it didn't need evidence, just impact. A psychic medium is brought in, and here's where everything goes wrong. The entity identifies itself as Annabelle Higgins, a child spirit, lost, lonely, just wants to stay, just wants to be loved. And Donna agrees. Permission. The most dangerous word in the paranormal dictionary. Enter Ed Warren and Lorraine Warren. They don't buy the Lost Girl story, not even for a second. Their conclusion? Not a child. Never was. Something inhuman was mimicking a child to gain trust. Because demons don't knock, they get invited. A priest challenges Annabelle, calls it powerless, drives it home, crashes his car, survives, barely. Coincidence? Sure. We're still using that word. Annabelle is taken by the Warrens, placed inside a wooden and glass case, blessed, sealed, marked with a warning, positively do not open, which, historically, is the fastest way to guarantee someone tries. Visitors who mock her report accidents, bad luck, near-death experiences, because apparently sarcasm is a trigger. Annabelle has allegedly been moved inside the sealed case. A museum visitor once banged on the glass, challenging her, and later was unalived in a motorcycle crash. Priests regularly bless the doll, not once, but repeatedly, like maintenance, because whatever is inside isn't passive, it's patient. So, what are the theories of what Annabelle is? Demonic manipulation, classic Warren stance, non human entity using deception. Psychokinesis, someone in the house unknowingly moved the doll throughout latent psychic ability, which is somehow more terrifying. Congratulations, your brain is haunted. Tulpa effect, the story feeds the entity. The more people believe, the stronger it becomes, meaning Annabelle might be less of a ghost and more of a crowd-funded nightmare. Here's a detail that lingers. Annabelle didn't start violent, she started small. A shift, a note, a feeling, like something testing the door before deciding to walk through it. If something in your home ever asks permission to stay, say no. And don't wait to mean it. Annabelle needed permission. Robert, he considers that optional. Early 1900s, Key West, a boy named Robert Eugene Otto, Gene, receives a doll, dressed in a sailor suit, straw stuffed, button eyed, harmless, right? Depends who you ask. Because the story goes, the doll wasn't bought, it was given by a servant after disagreements. Some versions say she practiced folk magic, others say she was simply mistreated. Either way, this wasn't a toy, it was a message. Gene adored the doll, named it after himself. Important detail. Because from that moment on, there were two Roberts in the house, and only one of them needed food. Jean spoke to Robert. Robert spoke back. Different voice. Witnesses described it as deeper, older, not imagination, conversation. Soon, the Otto household changed. Furniture overturned at night, footsteps when no one moved, laughter echoing through empty rooms. Neighbors claimed they saw Robert the doll in the window, watching, moving, tracking people as they passed, because nothing says good morning like eye contact from a third floor doll. Whenever something broke, vases, chairs, reality itself, Jean had the same answer. Robert did it. Not joking, not deflecting, matter of fact. Like saying, the sky is blue, or the doll is responsible for structural damage. At first, Jean's parents assumed imagination until they heard it. Two voices in the room, their son, and something answering until they saw it. The doll repositioned, moved, alive in the way objects absolutely should not be. Denial has limits. Robert found them. Eventually, Robert was locked away in the attic. Classic mistake. Because removing visibility doesn't remove presence, it concentrates it. Guest reports Guest reported footsteps overheard. Children refused to sleep. Servants quit. Robert wasn't gone. He was upstairs, waiting. Gene becomes an adult, moves back into the house with his wife, and brings Robert out again. Of course he does, because nothing says healthy relationship like introducing your haunted childhood companion into your married life. His wife hated the doll, claimed it moved, watched her, shifted positions when she wasn't looking, which at this point isn't even surprising. That's just Robert being Robert. Multiple witnesses reported subtle but wrong. Robert's expression changed. Not dramatically, just enough. A smirk where there shouldn't be one. A smirk where there wasn't one. Eyes that felt focused. Emotion where stitching should be. Because horror isn't always loud, sometimes it's just looks back differently. Today, Robert resides in the Fort East Martello Museum. And here's where things get strange in a very modern way. There are rules. You must ask permission to take his photo, out loud, politely. If you don't, people claim consequences. The museum receives letters, hundreds, apologies, from visitors who disrespected Robert, mocked him, took photos without asking, and afterwards, car accidents, job loss, illness, divorce. Coincidence stacking like dominoes, or something pushing them. Some letters even beg, please tell Robert I'm sorry. Think about that. Grown adults writing to a doll, hoping it forgives them. Robert is said to react when insulted. Subtle shifts, change in posture. Museum staff claims his energy changes depending on visitors. Security cameras have allegedly malfunctioned specifically around his exhibit. Some believe Robert doesn't just influence events, he chooses people. Because random chaos is scary, selective chaos, that's personal. The servants allege curse embedded intent into the doll, not a spirit, just pure direct malice. Could be a human attachment, a human entity latched onto Robert, using him as a physical anchor. Psycholo- Psychological projection. Jean's childhood trauma manifested outward, creating a shared delusion. Except delusions don't write apology letters decades later. Conscious entity. The most unsettling theory? Robert isn't possessed. He's aware. Always was. Annabelle waits for permission. Okiku waits to be cared for. But Robert watches, judges, and if you believe the letters, remembers. If you ever meet him, be polite. Not because it's respectful, but because he's listening. In Japan, dolls are not just toys, they are witnesses. 1918, Hokkaido. A young boy buys a doll for his little sister, Okiku. She's supposed to be about 2 or 3. He is about 17. A traditional ich, Ichimatsu doll, a ceramic face, human hair, small hands frozen mid gesture. She loves it, carries it everywhere, sleeps beside it, talks to it. Because children don't need proof to believe something is alive. Then she her life ends. Suddenly, young, and the doll stays. Now, from the stories I've always heard there, she got sick either from malaria or yellow fever, and unfortunately, when she passed, it was very, she suffocated. Like, she just got so sick she could barely breathe, and she was holding on to the doll until her very last breath. So, unfortunately, when her life ended, she ended pretty much not in a good way, scared, suffering, throwing that information out there. The family places a doll in her household altar. It is very common for in Japan for them to have altars dedicated to past loved ones. A space for remembrance, for spirits, for things that linger. At first, nothing seems unusual until someone notices the hair. It's longer, not dramatically, just enough to make you doubt your memory, which is how all good hauntings begin. They cut it, measure it, watch it, and it grows again, slowly, persistently, like something inside still cares about appearance, or refuses to accept it's gone. At one point, the hair reportedly reached the doll's knees. Let that settle in. And when it first started, it was right here above at the shoulders. A child spirit maintaining her hair inside an object that cannot decay. Eventually, the family entrusts the doll to the Menenji temple. where it remains, not locked away, not feared, maintained. Because in Japan, the response to supernatural isn't always fear, it's respect. Priests trim the hair, care for the doll, a ritual, not containment. Because the goal isn't to stop it, it's to live with it. At one point, strands of Okiku's hair were analyzed, reportedly confirmed to be human, which raises a question science doesn't enjoy answering. How does something without a scalp continue to grow hair? Possible explanations: cont- contamination, replacement, elaborate hoax, but none fully explain the consistency or the timeline, or the fact that no one benefits from the lie. To understand Okiku, you have to understand Japan. In Japanese folklore and Shinto belief, objects can gain a soul. They're called tsukumogami. Tools, objects, dolls, give enough time or enough emotional energy, they wake up. Not metaphorically, they're literally. Dolls are treated differently in Japan. They are not casually discarded because throwing one away improperly, it's disrespectful. And disrespect invites attachment. There are even ceremonies, Ninjo Kuyo, where dolls are ritually burned or blessed to release any spirit within. Think about that. Entire rituals just to say goodbye safely. Never leave a doll facing you while you're asleep. Don't keep dolls with damaged faces, especially the eyes. If a doll feels heavy, it's not about weight, and most importantly, if a doll is loved enough, it may not want to be abandoned. Now, those are just some superstitions Japan has about dolls. Other superstitions that I've heard is about all dolls in Japan, they're handmade, and it is believed that who makes the dolls put a little bit of their soul into them, and that's usually why they believe that if you are a doll maker, you're unable to have children yourself because you're putting that part of your soul into each doll. A little bit of their soul goes into the doll. They also say don't get a doll the size of your child or bigger because it can I guess want to say come alive. It can something can happen to your child, either an accident or it tries to take over your child's soul and tries to replace your child's soul with itself. If that makes sense. Child spirit attachment. The simplest explanation: Okiku spirit resides within a doll, not malicious, just unwilling to leave. Now that is their theory in Japan. I wish they would allow investigators to kind of investigate, try and talk, because I don't actually think my personal belief is I don't know nor fully believe it is Ukiku. They just named it Kiku because that was the name of the little girl who owned it. Residual energy. The family's grief imprinted onto the object, replaying through physical change. A loop of loss. Tsukonami awakening. Tsukomogami awakening. The doll itself became conscious, not possessed, evolved, which is somehow more unsettling. Because then the question becomes, what does it want? Some claim Okiku's mouth has allegedly opened over time. Now, I remember, I guess, I lived in Japan. I remember not too long ago that I saw like kind of articles on it where when it was originally made, And keep in mind that her head is porcelain. It was originally made for her mouth closed. Her mouth was closed. All of a sudden, it's starting to slowly open. They're not quite sure why. And from the reports that I was also reading, they said that they looked inside the doll's mouth, and it looks like where there should be like child's gums. I don't want to say her gums because it's still a porcelain doll. Where a child's gums would be, it looks like coming out is children's teeth. So somehow it's developing and children's teeth are coming out. If you ever had a child and when their teeth start coming, they start developing teeth, they start coming out. That's what they're seeing. Some people said if you look at it, look at the photos, you see the teeth. They're looking a little bit more pointed though. You're gonna have to just look up and decide if it looks normal or if it looks more pointed to you. I was not able to see her in person. I was living in southern Japan. She's in a very northern Japan. That is one of my regrets. I do plan going back to hopefully see her one day. Visitors reported seeing watched, but not threatened. Unlike Western haunted dolls, Okiku is rarely associated with violence, because not all hauntings are angry, some are just unfinished. Okiku doesn't scratch, doesn't chase, doesn't demand, she just stays, grows, waits, like a memory that refuses to fade, because somewhere it's still being held. Now, the family had this doll because some people say, oh, they gave it to the temple because they are so afraid of this doll. That is absolutely not the truth. So, the family actually took care of this doll for 20 years. To them, it was considered an honor to take care of her. So, they did. They took care of her. They trimmed her hair, they just took care of her. The only reason why after 20 years they gave it to a temple is because the family was moving somewhere else in Japan. And Japan is a very superstitious country. They feared if they took it far away from its original home, it was going to lose its magic or whatever you want to call it. They feared she was going to lose her power, her magic, whatever it is, like I said, you want to call it. So they went to the temple nearby, they talked to them. The temple actually already heard stories from people in the town, so they were already aware of the doll. They were excited, they were welcoming, they welcomed it in, and they still take care of her to this day. Now, also besides the hair growing, now the mouth opening, and possibly developing teeth. Originally, how they also said it was haunted was they would hear noises in the house, knocking in the house, just unexplained things, footsteps, things moving. And they said around Okiku's birthday and the anniversary of the day her life ended is when the activity increased. That is also why they believe it is Okiku in that doll. But being a paranormal investigator, you also know that there are other theories that could go with that. Maybe it's because they're thinking more about her on her birthday, thinking more about her on the anniversary of the day her life ended. And that is giving it more power. And that's why I would love for someone to just kind of sit down and be able to talk to her, figure it out. Other people have said when they visited her at the temple, they claim they've seen what looks like her breathing, or like breath on the glass of where she is. They kept seeing, they think it, the breath going in and out on it. I have heard stories of her visiting people in their dreams, and that is people who visit her claim they've seen her after she visited them in her dreams. The monks in a temple claim that she has visited them in her dreams. It's never malicious for the monks. They said it's mostly her saying what she would like in terms of her upkeep. She's like, I would like this. I would like my trim now. Whatever it is. That's it. Nothing. Never heard anything malicious. I do wish someone would have made a horror movie based off of her. I'm surprised they haven't yet. I mean, think about it. A doll that visits you in your dreams. She is malicious. She is not malicious, but you can make a horror movie you know, kind of going that way. In the West, we lock haunted dolls away. In Japan, they're given a home because some spirits don't need to be feared, just remembered. La Bambola del Pianto, the doll that learned to grieve. Italy doesn't always name its ghosts. Sometimes it just listens to them. Somewhere in the Italian countryside, accounts vary, as they always do. There stood a villa, old stone, heavy doors, the kind of place where silence feels occupied. A child lived there, and like all children, she had a favorite doll. Porcelain face, glass eyes, delicate, almost sacred. Then the child's life ended, and the house didn't let go. Neighbors reported it first, crying, soft at the beginning, almost mistaken for wind slipping through broken shutters. But it didn't fade, it repeated, night after night, always from inside, always when no one was supposed to be there. Because abandoned houses don't cry, something inside them does. Those who dared enter found the doll. At first, sitting quietly in a nursery, then not. Each visit, it had moved a chair, a hallway, a staircase, closer to the entrance, closer to the living, because whatever it was doing, it wasn't wandering, it was approaching. Witnesses described the eyes as wet, not physically dripping, but reflective in a way that suggests depth, emotion, as if the glass wasn't just catching light, but holding something behind it. And then came the detail that turned story into warning. Some swore they saw tears, not fall, just exist. Because sometimes the most terrifying thing isn't motion, it's presence. Eventually, a priest was called. Because in Italy, when something doesn't make sense, you don't debate it, you bless it. The house was cleansed, prayers spoken, rooms sealed, and the doll removed. Accounts split here. Some say it was destroyed, others say it was locked away, hidden, because certain objects are meant to be eliminated, just contained. Italy lives at the crossroads of religion and superstition. Catholic doctrine on one side, folk belief on the other, and dolls, they sit uncomfortably in between. Superstitions. Eyes matter. Dolls with overly realistic eyes are often avoided or covered at night. Never keep a doll near a deathbed. It's believed objects can absorb the departing soul. Inherited dolls are treated carefully, not for their value, but for what they might carry. Broken dolls aren't thrown away lightly, especially if the face is damaged. That's seen as an opening. Because in many Italian traditions, objects aren't empty, they're impressionable. Italy's long standing belief in Malaccio, the evil eye, adds another layer. It's the idea that intention, envy, or grief can imprint onto a person, or an object. A doll, especially one tied to a child, becomes vulnerable, a vessel, not necessarily possessed, but marked. And marks linger. Theories. What was the weeping doll? Residual haunting. The child's grief replaying, not conscious, just trapped emotion looping endlessly. Spirit attachment. A fragment of the child refusing to move on, anchored to the one thing that she loved most. Emotional imprint. Mulatto. Not a spirit at all, but grief so intense it changed the object permanently. A scar that learned to echo. Some versions of the story claim animals refused to enter the villa. Others say the crying stopped only when the doll was removed. A rarer account suggests the crying followed briefly after relocation because movement doesn't always mean escape. Sometimes it just changes the address. The difference between Italy and the rest of the world, Italy doesn't rush to call something evil. Sometimes it's sad. And maybe that's worse. Because anger can be fought, but grief waits for you to feel too. Mandy, the one that doesn't like to be left alone. Some haunted dolls want attention. Mandy, she demands company. 1991, Canada. A woman donates a porcelain doll to a museum. Not unusual. The reason? That's where it gets interesting. She couldn't keep it anymore. Said it cried at night. Glass case, quiet house, no children, and yet crying. Soft, persistent. Every night at the exact hour when silence should be complete. Mandy is placed in the Quesnel and District Museum. Public space, staff, lights. Control. Except control doesn't last long around objects like this. Soon after her arrival, lunches went missing from staff rooms, objects disappeared, then reappeared in different places, tools were moved, displays disturbed, nothing violent, just inconvenient, petty, like living with something that enjoys small chaos. Here's where Mandy gets specific. She doesn't like other dolls. When placed near them, strange activity increases. So the museum made a decision. Mandy stays alone, separate display, because whatever she is, she doesn't share space well. Visitors report a consistent pattern. Discomfort, not fear, not panic, just unease, a pressure, like being watched from something that doesn't try to hide it. Cameras have malfunction around her. Photos come out distorted or empty because apparently Mandy has opinions about documentation. Mandy's appearance doesn't scream horror, porcelain skin, blue dress, soft curls, but the expression, subtle, ambiguous, sad, or knowing. And the eyes, they don't follow you, they wait for you to look back. Let's go back to the original plane. Crying. Not loud, not theatrical, just enough to wake someone up, just enough to make you listen. And here's the unsettling part. At the museum, some staff have reported hearing it too. Not often, not consistently, just enough to make the story inconveniently alive. Mandy is believed to date back to the early 1900s. Some claim she reacts more when ignored than when observed. Staff has occasionally found items placed near her that no one admits to moving. Visitors sometimes feel compelled to speak to her without knowing why, because influence doesn't always feel like control. Sometimes it just feels like your own ideas. Theories: lonely spirit attachment. A child spirit tied to the doll, seeking interaction, not malicious, just persistent. Poltergeist activity. The disturbances, missing objects, movement suggest a more active force, playful or bored. Emotional residue. The crying isn't a voice, it's an imprint, a memory echoing through the object, a loop of distress. The more people focus on Mandy, the more phenomena occur, which turns every visitor into fuel. Mandy doesn't escalate dramatically, no attacks, no scratches, no headlines, just patterns. Repeatable, annoying, unignorable. Like a dripping faucet you can't fix because the plumbing isn't physical. Not all haunted dolls are violent, some are just needy. And sometimes that's worse because anger burns out, but loneliness stays. Most haunted dolls require proximity. Same room, same building, same air. Peggy, she lowers the bar. Peggy didn't come with a long romantic backstory. No tragic Victorian child, no dusty attic discovery. She surfaced through paranormal investigator Jane Harris, who received the doll after its previous owner reported severe experiences. Not unease, not discomfort, physical symptoms, chest pain, nausea, debilitating headaches. Doctors found nothing because apparently Peggy doesn't leave fingerprints. Here's where Peggy separates herself from others. People's reported react reactions just from seeing her image, not touching, not visiting, just watch a video, a photograph, a screen. Let that settle in. Because that breaks a rule most hauntings politely follow: distance. Jane Harris conducted an informal experiment, displayed Peggy in a video, invited viewers to observe their reactions. What followed? Dozens reported symptoms, some mild, some intense, headaches appearing within minutes, tightness in their chest, sudden anxiety or dread, nausea strong enough to stop watching. Now, skeptics will say suggestion, expectation, the power of belief, and are not wrong, but here's the problem. Not everyone knew what to expect. Some just reacted. Peggy doesn't move dramatically. She doesn't need to. Her effect is described as internal, not something you see, something you feel. Like frequency slightly off from your own. And your body notices before your brain does. Peggy's appearance is deceptively ordinary. Porcelain, dark hair, neutral expression, but there was a tension in the face. Not anger, not sadness. Something held back. Like a thought interrupted, or a memory that shouldn't still be active. The theory: what makes Peggy different? Peggy introduces a dangerous idea. What if haunted objects don't need to be physical? Theory 1. Attachment with projection. An entity tied to the doll can extend influence beyond it through attention, awareness, focus. You don't need to touch the object, you just need to acknowledge it. Psychological trigger object. Peggy acts as a catalyst, not haunted herself, but capable of triggering deep psychological responses through subconscious cues, which would mean the danger isn't the doll, it's in us. Information based haunting. The most unsettling theory. The haunting isn't the object, it's the pattern, the image, the idea, the kind of mimetic entity, something that spreads through perception itself. You see it, and now it sees you. Some viewers reported symptoms stopping immediately after turning the image off. Others claimed lingering effects for hours. A few described vivid dreams after exposure, unrelated but emotionally intense. Peggy has been kept in controlled conditions to limit interactions because, unlike other dolls, limiting access doesn't guarantee safety. Annabelle manipulates. Annabelle manipulates space. Robert manipulates events. Okiku alters physically. Peggy, she targets perception, and perception is everywhere you are. Most haunted objects wait for you to come closer. Peggy doesn't wait. She just needs you to look. Different countries, different religions, different languages, same instincts. That's interesting. Across cultures, people who deal with dolls, collectors, investigators, even skeptics, tend to follow eerily similar rules. Don't let dolls face you while you sleep, because if something changes, you won't see it happen. Mirrors and dolls don't mix. Reflection doubles presence, or worse, creates options. Never name a doll casually. Naming establishes identity. Identity invites attachment. Don't keep too many in one place. One is curiosity. A room full? That's congregation. If a doll feels heavy, trust that. Not physical weight, emotional density. The kind you don't measure but recognize instantly. Because when humans repeat the same behavior across centuries, it's either superstition or pattern recognition we don't fully understand. What if dolls don't act? What if they replay? The stone tape theory suggests objects, especially old porous materials, can record emotional events, like a haunting, on loop. That means the crying isn't happening now, the movement isn't intentional, the doll isn't alive. It's just playing back something that never ended, which sounds comforting until the loop starts reacting to you. In quantum physics, observation changes outcome. Now apply that to haunted objects. Some investigators claim activity increases when people watch, stops when ignored, changes based on expectation. Meaning the doll isn't the only participant, you are, which raises an uncomfortable possibility. You are not witnessing the haunting, you're part of it. This one shows up everywhere, from Japan to Italy to rural America. Strong strong emotions, grief, fear, loneliness leaves residue. And dolls, they're built to resemble us. So they become natural hosts for that residue. Not alive, not possessed, just saturated, like a sponge that doesn't know how to let go. This one appears in nearly every case. The invitation principle. Annabelle, Robert, others. Something always escalates after permission. You can stay. It's harmless. It's just a doll. 3 sentences, 3 mistakes. Because whether psychology, psychological or paranormal, permission changes the relationship. Let's address the glass case in the room. Haunted dolls attract attention. Attention brings visitors. Visitors bring money. So here's the conspiracy. What if some active dolls are encouraged? Not faked, just not discouraged. Because a quiet artifact is history. A haunted one, that's business. This the mimetic entity theory. This is where Peggy enters the chat. The idea, the haunting isn't the doll, it's the idea of the doll. A self-propagating pattern. You hear about it, you imagine it, you feel it, you spread it like a virus. Made of attention. Which means haunted dolls might not be objects at all. They might be stories that learn how to behave like things. Some believe certain dolls are intentionally charged through rituals, intense repetition, not necessarily demonic, just focused human will. Think of it as programming, but instead of code, you use belief. Many haunted dolls are reported to move less when directly observed. Active activity often increases in the transitional times, 3 a.m., dusk, storms. Some collectors refuse to repair damaged dolls, especially the eyes. Children are more likely to report interaction and less likely to be believed. Dogs and cats frequently avoid specific dolls or stare at them for long periods because animals don't need explanations, they just react. Here's a thread connecting all this. Dogs are designed to imitate life. Dolls are designed to imitate life. And humans are designed to recognize this. And humans are designed to recognize life. So when something sits in between those two things, not alive, not dead, not empty, your brain doesn't relax. It searches, fills gaps, creates meaning, and sometimes meaning creates something back. So the question isn't, are haunted dolls real? It's how much of real are you willing to give them? Humans are wired to see faces. It's called pareidolia. Pareidolia. Our brain habit our brain's habit of finding meaning where there might be none. 2 dots in a line, a face. A shadow in a corner, a figure. Now take a doll. It already has a face, it already has eyes, it already mimics emotion. So your brain doesn't ask if it's alive, it asks, why isn't it moving? That's that tension alone can create the feeling of being watched, misremembered positions, false movement in peripheral vision, which means sometimes The haunting might not be in the doll, it's in the gap between expectation and stillness. Notice something? Most haunted dolls are old. Early 1900s, Victorian era, handmade. Why? Because older objects carry unknown histories, multiple owners, emotional residue stacked over time. Every owner adds something: grief, joy, loneliness, layer after layer, until the object feels less like an item and more like a timeline with a face. The uncanny control theory? This one's subtle, but powerful. Dolls represent control. Children use them to simulate life. You decide what they say. You decide how they move. You decide their story. Now flip that. A haunted doll is disturbing because control reverses. It moves without you. It decides things. It exists outside your narrative. That's not just fear, that's a violation of something fundamental: your role as an observer. Even skeptics do these quietly, turning a doll to face the wall before bed, covering it with a cloth, just in case. Saying things like it's just an object out loud, not because they believe, because they don't want to be wrong. Every famous haunted doll shares one thing: attention. Stories told, videos watched, names repeated. And here's the uncomfortable thought: what if attention is activation? Not supernatural, not mystical, just a feedback loop. You focus, you notice more, you feel something. You reinforce the story grows, until eventually it doesn't feel like a story anymore. What if haunted dolls aren't the beginning? What if they're the training wheels? Safe, contained, explainable, a way for something, whatever something is, to learn how we react, what scares us, what we ignore, what we invite in. Because a doll is simple, predictable, limited. But if something can understand you through that, it doesn't need the doll forever. Maybe haunted dolls don't need to move with you, don't need to move when you're looking. Not because they can't, but because they've already learned. They don't need to. So, what did we learn tonight? That some dolls move, some cry, some grow, and some don't need to do anything at all. Maybe they're haunted, maybe they're psychological, maybe they're just objects carrying stories when we never meant to inherit. But here's the part that lingers: every single one of them started the same way: owned, loved, kept close. No one buys a doll expecting it to become a problem. No one brings something into their home thinking, this might watch me sleep at night. And yet, here we are. So tonight, before you turn off the lights, take a look around. Not dramatically, just casually. That shelf, that corner, that chair where something sits exactly the way you left it. Ask yourself one question: are you sure it hasn't moved? And if you have a doll in your house, don't worry, it's probably nothing. Probably. Sleep well, and remember, some things don't need to chase you when they already know where you are. I'll see you next time.